Hey there, kids. It's time to sit because Battleground Casual is on. Here's Aaron or Matt.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of Battleground Casual, the show where we discuss movies and not debate them. Once again, I am not joined by Matt Beer, although his presence was felt through his vocal talents. I am joined in the co-host seat this time by Mr. Kevin Poss. Kevin, how you doing, man?
What's up, guys and gals out there? I'm doing great, Aaron. Thank you for having me on your show. This is my second time on the show, I think.
Yes.
So looking forward to talking about some movies.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So for anyone wondering, if anyone tunes into this show, because the views have been going up almost every week, which we do appreciate the people who do watch. For anyone wondering, Matt will be back July 15th. He's going to be gone for the next couple of weeks because he is in between his normal job and his normal endeavors. He's actively working on moving, which is something he's discussed on the show a couple times before. It's actually finally happening. So he will be settled in, internet set up, everything ready to go by the 15th. So this show and the next show, he won't be here. Unfortunately, that means I won't get to rub in his face next week when Indiana Jones underperforms like I had predicted it would, but it just means we'll have to save that for another week. I'm not proud to rub in that movie's underperforming, but it is, and I was right. So,
Hey.
got to take your wins. But with that said, guys, before we go ahead and get into the main topics, we're going to start, as we always do, with the non-starters. These are the news stories this week where if you, for some reason, choose to watch our show for your news, these were news stories that came out this week, but I'm not going to discuss them for one reason or another. And we're going to start with the first one. While promoting Haunted Mansion and casually working a shift at Disneyland alongside her co-stars. Yes, that's a real thing. Look it up. They had the cast of Haunted Mansion work a day at Haunted Mansion for promotion for this movie. Jamie Lee Curtis confirmed the long-rumored Freaky Friday 2 is in active development. Whether it'll go to theaters or Disney Plus is currently unknown, but if Curtis is to be believed, both herself and Lohan are already completely signed on to the project, and the movie is now picking out shooting dates for the year 2024. This is a non-starter because we're not teenage girls. With that said, the second story, Mortal Kombat film producer Todd Garner confirmed this week that fan favorite character Baraka will appear in the sequel. The actor, as of now, is unconfirmed, although based off costuming, it's believed that a stunt actor has already performed for the character on set, as was seen in a picture that was taken by some of the cast and crew. This is a non-starter because for some reason, every time we do a Mortal Kombat story, nobody seems to want to watch it. So I guess we'll talk about the movie when it comes out. And then finally, the third one is, despite 98%, yes, 98% of the acting guild voting 2 different times, there were 2 separate votes to go on strike in support of the Writers Guild. At the 11th hour last night, the heads of SAG-AFTRA signed an extension to buy more time to negotiate a deal. The strike was supposed to begin effective this morning, but will now begin on July 15th unless a deal is reached first. This is a non-starter because, let's be real, of everybody who's on the show, Matt and I are the 2 who are most interested in talking about this. So we'll probably dive into it deeper when he's back in a couple of weeks, because by then we'll know if they did actually go on strike, if they did reach a deal, or if they pussied out again and signed another extension, because let's be real, the heads of SAG-AFTRA don't intend on standing with the writers. That's clearly what they've shown here. With that said, though, we're going to jump into the Way Too Late weekly box office segment. Let's talk about what happened over a week ago. Thanks once again, Aaron, and welcome back to the latest Way Too Late weekly box office report. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse rebounds back to the number 1 spot for the first time since entering theaters 4 weeks ago. The animated superhero flick has been holding incredibly well so far, but even then it only dropped 28.5% from last week, grossing $19.3 million. The film has also passed the $300 million mark domestically. At the time of writing this on Monday, June 26th, it is at $317.1 million. If the film can continue to hold at this rate, it is on track to pass Guardians Volume 3 to become the second highest grossing film domestically this year, behind Mario. Another film that held well was Elemental. The Pixar film was considered a disappointment after an opening that was under the $30 million mark. However, the film held well, dropping 37.6% to gross $18.5 million on its second weekend. The film is still well underperforming what Pixar should expect, but this is at least a positive sign that the studio badly needed. Now let's get to the big boy. DC's The Flash dropped 72.3% from week 1 to week 2, earning 15.3 million and just barely eking out a third place finish at the last minute on Sunday, as No Hard Feelings was beating the film for most of the weekend until the late night Sunday screenings. Following the disastrous opening, this was not what DC needed to see. After 2 weeks, the film still sits under the $100 million mark domestically, although by the end of the week it should pass it. Worldwide, the movie is doing more okay. In total, the film has grossed 211 million at the time of this recording on Monday, June 26th. But with an estimated budget of 300 million, this is nowhere near enough to turn a profit, meaning they could have 2 huge money-losing films so far in 2023, and there's still 2 more DC films to go. The only real new debuting film this week, No Hard Feelings, comes in 4th place, above the $12 million projection to make $15.1 million. Transformers Rise of the Beasts comes in 5th place with $11.6 million earned in its 3rd weekend. While the movie started out doing strong, its heavy drop-off leaves it financially still sitting behind Bumblebee while costing more than that said film. However, projectionists are still saying that it should wind up making more than Bumblebee and Transformers The Last Night, if not barely. The question is if it'll turn more of a profit than Bumblebee because of its budget. Asteroid City went wide last weekend and continued its excellent box office run. The movie finished in 6th place with 9 million on just over 1,000 screens and becomes the best weekend, not opening weekend, but weekend in general of Wes Anderson's career. The Little Mermaid held strong, finally, in week 5, taking in 8.7 million for 7th place. Guardians Volume 3 comes in 8th place with 3.5 million. The Blackening comes in 9th with 3 million. And The Boogeyman comes in 10th with 2.5 million. In the non-top 10 news of the week, Past Lives, a film that made it onto the top 10 a couple of weeks ago in limited release, has expanded to more theaters across the country. It came in a close 11th place, earning 1.1 million in week 3. And finally, Vin Diesel's Fast X, which grossed another 1.1 million itself at the box office this week, is the only film to drop out of the top 10, effectively concluding its incredibly disappointing box office run after just 6 domestic weeks. And there are some updates, because as I said, I do usually write these at the start of the week, so some quick updates there. Spider-Verse is currently at 331 domestic, so it has gone up significantly since during the midweek showings. It's at 575 worldwide, so it's already over $500 million, which is, again, is far exceeding what the first one made. The Flash, my prediction was actually incorrect. As of Friday's totals coming in, the film is still only at 95 million domestic. It has not passed 100 million domestically. It is it's only at 219 worldwide. And right now, based on Friday and Thursday night projections that have come in, it is looking like the film could finish in 7th or 8th place this weekend. With it dropping even below the Little Mermaid and Transformers totals so far at the weekend. So, yeah, the Flash is not looking good. But, Kevin, I always go to the co-host first. What are your thoughts in terms of what you heard there? Or if you need me to repeat anything, I obviously can.
No, I'm looking at it right here. So I'm not shocked by the ability of movies like Fast X to hang in there as long as it did, and Guardians is hanging in. Asteroid City, that one is good on Wes Anderson for his most the most he's ever gotten in a
the weekend.
Yeah, there you go. Opening weekend.
The closest he's ever come before is, I believe, the weekend that Grand Budapest Hotel went wide. It made like 7.5 or something. So this still definitely exceeded that, which was good.
Big time. Yeah. Okay. I mean, Little Mermaid is another one I'm not shocked by. I'm shocked as hell by The Flash, and also by Transformers. I thought those would hang up there in the top 5 a little longer, but looks like this Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken movie is coming in. Also, the Elemental and Spider-Man are just dominating right now. So, I mean, it's The Flash, I think, is the biggest surprise to me. I thought, even though no matter what people expected or what they thought it might be, I thought people would still, go out to the theaters and give it a look see, see if it was worth anything. But apparently not. Apparently they're going to wait until it comes out on HBO Max.
And I think because we've had the discussion on the show before, obviously with many different panel members, of this idea of like, we're film fans. So like me as a news guy, I pay attention to everything that's said. And obviously people who do as well, or people who come here, hear the news when they come on the show or when they watch the show. So like we're more informed than the average person. But there is a question of like, how much does the average person pick up on in terms of what do they actually know is happening? And this to me is sheer confirmation that people are aware that DC is rebooting. Like this is not just something film nerds are paying attention to, because it's not a coincidence that Shazam, which while it didn't do gangbusters the first time around, it did turn a good profit for DC and it did make a good chunk of change. That movie failed. The Flash, which was this big, hyped, anticipated character, as my brother said to me the other day, which I didn't even realize, they announced this movie in the build up to the show airing on the CW. Like they announced the modern DC Ezra Miller version of the film ahead of the premiere of the show. And the show is now ended before this movie even released. You would think with 9 years of a show to help build some sort of hype, this movie would
build up to a
this
movie, right?
No. And I genuinely think DC need to start finding funds elsewhere, because I think Blue Beetle's going to tank hard, and I think Aquaman's going to really tank hard.
Oh man, yeah, it's not looking good for DC. I don't think.
Like I think they're going to lose a lot of money before hopefully Superman turns some sort of profit for them. Because this is it could get ugly really quickly. And the thing is, there's nothing they can do about it except stew in it, because at this point they've either pissed off or fired everybody who was involved with the making of these films. That's like right. There is no reaction to any of this. They have to just sit in their own failure and go, all right, guys, let's do better next time. Yep. The only person who can really wipe his hands of this is James Gunn. Because even Peter Safran produced a lot of these movies before Gunn became involved. Like, it's just James Gunn that gets to go, right, I have to do better than this, but this is not my fault.
I feel like they just keep kind of recycling the same ideas too, with like Black Adam, and then
God, don't even get me started on that.
Shazam 2. I mean, like they're just kind of spitting out stuff. They're not getting anything that's catching anybody's eye.
Yeah, and of course it's good to see Spider-Verse still holding. I went and saw it in theaters again yesterday just because I had nothing better to do, and I haven't seen it like in a month when it first came out. And like on a Friday afternoon at 3:00 on its 5th or 6th week or whatever it is, that theater was still like half sold out. Which is incredible that movie. And obviously that's one individual screening, and it's in Orlando, which is more populous than other places. But still, like the fact that it's doing that is like, that's incredible that this movie is still selling. Good for them. They deserve every penny of it. And
for sure.
Now they just need to make sure they knock the next one out of the park, because you can't do this twice and then not hit the third one.
I was about to say, you got to get all three. Yep.
All right, guys. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next segment. And we're going to go ahead and bring in our panelists here to join us. Behind the scenes, we got 3 great panelists joining us. First off, we have Kevin Moreno here with us. Kevin, welcome. How you doing?
Good. It's good to be back. Again. Absolutely. Surprisingly, a week later.
Yeah, he was here last week. We brought him back again. So we'll go ahead and bring in Alec Miller. The last time, Alec, you were here with us, we were discussing a Marvel topic that you hadn't seen. Have you seen the one we're discussing tonight?
I have seen it. It's a little bit easier because it's right there on Disney Plus. So I can just watch it real quick. I only got one watch in, but what I thought of the show later on.
Absolutely. And the third name down there, I wrote his real name because I'm professional, but he likes to be called Frenchie. So Frenchie, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show. First time here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm pretty good. I can't wait to start, my man. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely, guys. So, of course, Secret Invasion is going to be the main topic of the show that we'll spend the bulk of the runtime on towards the end of the show. But we have a few news topics we're going to get into in depth beforehand. And the first is a major, major piece of news in Hollywood. After weeks and weeks of speculation, we not only know who our next Superman and Lois Lane are going to be, but there was also a few more rumors swirling around outside of it as James Gunn begins looking at supporting characters. So, let's talk about that first. Here's the news on it. This week it was mega reporters Boris Kitt and Justin Kroll and the good people at The Hollywood Reporter and Deadline that led the way in reporting when it came to breaking the Superman stories. Everything I'm about to say comes from a mix of those two publications and specifically those two guys. First off, after multiple rounds of screen testing with 6 main actors in contention, it was reported that James Gunn and Peter Safran had cast Pearl actor David Cornsweet and the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel star Rachel Brosnahan, in the roles of Superman and Lois Lane. They will each become the 4th actors cast in pair in major motion pictures to take on the role, following Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder, Brandon Routh and Kate Bosworth, and most recently Henry Cavill and Amy Adams. Although if you fans out there of DC Super Pets want to count it, technically they're 5th, as John Krasinski and Olivia Wilde played the duo in that film. While the official casting does stop there, rumors still continue. For starters, not all of the hopefuls for the lead roles may be done with this movie. Actress Emma Mackey was reportedly brought in as the actress to screen test the 3 Supermen on the final day of testing. Twitter rumors led people to believe that this was because she had been cast in the role of Lois Lane. However, more legit reporting later, and then of course the official confirmation, indicated that Brosnahan had been decided upon on the second to last day of screen testing, and that Mackey was actually reading for a different role in the film alongside the Superman actors. Hence why she was the only one brought back in. Excuse me about that. We also know that Nicholas Hoult was the leading choice for Lex Luthor, and THR was able to report this week that brother duo Alexander Skarsgård and Bill Skarsgård are apparently his 2 competition. The article also included the detail that the 3 are apparently reading for multiple villain roles, and it's believed that the secondary villain will be Brainiac, but this is nowhere near confirmed yet. Continuing the rumors around the film, it began circulating this week that Superman's pa, Jonathan Kent, will be in the film. If the rumors are currently believed to be true, Brendan Fraser is the top choice for the role. It's also believed that Gunn wants to reunite with friend and actor Michael Rooker on the film, who is believed to be his top choice for Perry White. One of the reports mentioned, though, that Gunn is more interested in having the actors in the film than he is having them tied to specific roles. So apparently they'll test both actors for both roles. So there's a world in which Rooker could wind up playing Kent and Fraser could wind up playing Perry if they both sign. Gunn has also stated that casting will begin on all the supporting roles, confirming that superhero team The Authority and the character Jimmy Olsen, who was omitted from the DCEU version of the films, will be in the final movie as well. The film is set to begin production either at the end of this year or early next year, and is eyeing a July 11th, 2025 release. All right, so we'll go through this piece by piece and sort of break it down. We'll start with the official one, which is Superman casting actor David Cornsweet in the role of Clark Kent and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel star Rachel Brosnahan in the Lois Lane role. I'll get my thoughts out quick and then I'll pass it on to you guys. All 3 of those Lois Lane actresses, because it was her, obviously, Emma Mackey, and Phoebe Dynevor was the 3rd one. I've said before, I'm not very familiar with any of them. They're all their main bulk roles are in TV currently, and unfortunately, I've not seen any of the shows they're in. I've heard excellent things, just haven't seen the shows yet. So I didn't really have a pick one way or the other, but congratulations to Rachel Brosnahan. Similarly, of the 3 Superman actors, the one I was most familiar with was Nick Hoult, but I didn't think he was the best choice for it, so I'm glad it didn't go to him. My only issue with Cornsweet, who again I'm unfamiliar with, is I think he looks a little too much like Henry Cavill. I mean, I know Superman has like a look that people want to go for, but this is almost too close. But that said, the people I know who have seen him in things like Pearl, he was also in the Netflix show Hollywood, have nothing but good things to say about him. So hopefully, I mean, again, if Gunn's casting him, he has a good track record when it comes to casting. So even though I'm not familiar with either of them, I'm just going to believe they're the right choices and wish them the best of luck. Kevin, I'll go over to you. Are you a little more familiar with these 2? And then what are your thoughts on the casting?
I'm not a little more familiar. I mean, David Cornswell is young. I mean, and that kind of intrigues me because I'm curious as to what storyline we're gonna be seeing, and where we're gonna start off with this new DCU, from the Superman perspective. But yeah, I mean, he obviously beat out. He beat out Nicholas Hoult and Tom Brittany, which in my mind, like, I thought Nicholas Hoult had it locked up. And then same thing with Lois Lane. I mean, I think it's going to be she's going to do a great job. I lost her name now, but
Rachel Brosnahan.
Yeah, Rachel Brosnahan. I haven't seen her in anything, but like I said, it's too young. With a little bit of wet behind the ears, but yet they've had a little bit of experience as well. So it'll be exciting to see what can they do, what kind of chemistry they have on screen, and then like you said, like who they put them with, because I mean, just casting two people like can be a completely different movie when you surround them with great actors. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin?
Yeah, I'm really interested. I've not seen any of their work except probably Rachel Brosnahan's. Pronounce the last name right. I think I remember seeing her in a bit of a Creature, but I don't remember which character was. So I probably might have to rewatch that movie again, which I think it's one of the most unappreciated failed YA movies. But I'm like, but I'm excited. I want to see what Jameson can do with these two as Lois Lane and Superman. Yep.
All right, Alec, I'll go to you. Of everyone here I know, in terms of what I know about their specific tastes, I want to say you're the most horror inclined out of everyone that's here, at least as far as I know. So because he was such a big part in Pearl, at least as far as the casting list goes, have you seen that film? Can you comment on it, or are you familiar with either of them in any other capacity?
Yeah, I actually just saw Pearl last week.
Okay.
Last week for the first time, and I guess really like that movie is so controlled by Mia Goth. Like he's not really given a lot to do. It's kind of like a one-note character. It's not a giant role. That movie is mostly Mia Goth just kind of doing her thing. So like he's cool, and like you said, he looks exactly like Henry Cavill. He looks like, first thing I said when I saw him was like, he looks like Superman. Sorry, my son is screaming.
You're good.
Sorry. Yeah. So like he looks exactly like Superman, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Henry Cavill looks exactly like Superman. That's the look that we want for Superman, or we're gonna have a load of people complaining that it's not actually Superman. Stupid stuff. But he looks like Superman, and with Gunn choosing him and picking him as the right guy, I trusted him. With Rachel Brosnahan, I only know her from House of Cards. I've never seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She's in the one season of House of Cards, which is great. That might be the best season of House of Cards. But I don't know what she's done. I haven't seen her outside of that. So she was another one. Was like, it looks like Lois Lane. Yeah. I've heard great things about the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So I'll trust everybody else. So I'm cool with it. I wanted Emma Mackey mostly because I love her in Sex Education. But Brosnahan's cool, and hearing that Mackey might still be in talks for a role, I'm excited.
Yeah, and then Frenchie, over to you.
Yeah, well, I'm happy that James Gunn is continuing the tradition of casting more of an unknown actor to the role, because for me, casting a very big name like Nicholas Hoult and Superman's such an iconic role that for me would have been distracting. I want to just have a clean slate and not think of other movies this actor has done, right? So I'm happy that he went that direction. A lot less distracting. Yeah, in Gun We Trust, we do. And also for Lois Lane, I didn't even realize this is the same actress in House of Cards, but now that you said it,
that's great.
in Mr. Sinister, it makes sense. If not mistaken, she played the reporter that got killed and pushed in the train, right?
Yes.
And she played well, that reporter. She felt like
awesome.
She actually did the job. So I can see it translated properly into the Lois Lane character, especially that she was a strong, not lead, but still strong character that did not get pushed around and didn't understand her limits to her demise, but still didn't understand her limits. It kept pushing. And that's what you kind of want in a Lois Lane as well. So I do see it translating properly.
There you go. Maybe all those articles online, because again, a lot of people, maybe because it's more of a known show in sex education, it also is a bigger platform at Netflix. A lot of people seem to be pushing for Emma Mackey over the likes of Rachel Brosnahan, but maybe people reporting online need to draw more attention to a role in House of Cards, because again, having seen neither of them, that certainly sounds like a much smarter reference to make if you're trying to refer the actor to something than Mrs. Maisel, which from everything I've heard is a very particular type of character that she's playing.
I think Miss Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was it won how many Emmys? She was always great. It's just a completely different role than what she was in House of Cards. In House of Cards was a much darker role that she had to play and stuff. So that's really the only reason why I was I haven't seen her recently, but she's always winning Emmys, so she's got to be good.
Well, for me, that says that, if she was that good in House of Cards, and it's been a while, she's probably progressed as an actress. Right. So if she had that gravitas in that show, I can only imagine the gravitas she has in Superman.
And Emma Mackey and Brosnahan are kind of a little further apart in age, at least 5 years, I think. So I saw
she is the older of the two. She's 32. He is 29.
Yeah, and I think Emma Mackey's 27. So it's I think they had a general age that they wanted to go with, and that's why that plays a part in it too, and that's why I'm hoping Emma Mackey does get something in the.
There was definitely a late 20s at I think Rachel Brosnahan at 32 was the oldest of the 6 that they were screen testing. Mm-hmm. They were definitely looking for within that age range because as everyone pointed to, Henry Cavill is and again, look, I've discussed on the show before, there's a whole sect of people that'll stand by Henry Cavill because of their love for the Snyderverse till the end. But this is a defensive point here. Henry Cavill isn't really that old, even by Hollywood standards. He is 40. He still could have done this for a few years if they had wanted to, but clearly there's a reason they want to go even noticeably younger. There's 11 years between him and Corn Sweat, and that is definitely a big enough age gap that there's a reason you're going with him.
Yeah.
And I totally forgot, but what Alex said about his look. The minute I saw his picture, it was just with the widow's peak and the dimples in his cheeks. I mean, the guy he looks like he's cut from marble. He is Superman. He's got the perfect look. So,
well, actually, I did not know. I did not know this. I'll go to the chat. I did not know this. Pull up the comment from Jonathan here. Apparently, he's a Juilliard graduate. Trained. That's probably about as trained as you can get in America. So good for him. Also, for all of you out there who are upset at British actors taking American roles, because that's really the biggest concern Hollywood has right now. Corn Sweat is American, so congratulations, you did win. With that said, we're gonna go with the reverse. I'll start with Frenchie here. Let's talk about the more rumored stuff here, and I'll ask you of that, what stands out to you the most? Of course, we have potentially Emma Mackey up for some unknown role in the film. That's why she continued to screen test with the actors. There was a bit of detail that came out about the Lex Luthor thing after the fact, which I'll get to in a second when it comes back around to me. But we have Holt now moving over to Luthor alongside the Skarsgård brothers. That seems to be the 3 there. Potentially one of them could also end up as Brainiac if that rumor's true. And then we have Fraser and Michael Rooker being looked at for Kent or Perry White, either or it seems. Maybe they could go with that type of casting. Which of those is the most interesting to you?
For me, I really hope that Holt is not Luthor because I don't see him. I actually see one of the Skarsgård more as a Luthor than Holt. I don't know, something soft about him that he's interesting, but I don't see him go head to head with Superman and feel realistically like there's something to be watched. I just don't feel it. So I hope that's not true. I hope that all three of them are being tested for Lex Luthor, and one of them is going to get Lex Luthor, because I don't see it going. For the Brent Fraser and McRook, just genius. That's awesome. Like wherever, and I like the fact that is rumored like James Gunn doesn't have a role set in mind. It's like wherever we can place them, we just want to find a room for them, and that I find brilliant, because you're not forcing a role onto someone that maybe is not made for, but you still want to bring it in. You're getting the best talent and plugging it in the best places possible. So, and personally, I would like to see more Fraser as Papa Kent. But I'm happy Fraser's on a rebound and is getting more and more stuff, because he's an awesome guy. But I do see him as a father figure.
Yeah, and him being brought in here doesn't seem that much of a shock. In interviews previously, Gunn sort of seemed to indicate that, jokingly, he had said at the time that he felt the need to sort of make something up to Fraser, because it seemed as his career is sort of back on an incline. Doom Patrol, which he was a part of, gets canceled partially because of Gunn taking over. And then, of course, Batgirl got canceled. That wasn't his fault, but it still happened. So it's like, I don't know, maybe it'd be cool. He kind of made comments before about putting him in the universe would be a cool thing to sort of get him back in here. And yeah, it seems like a good idea down that road. Alec, I'll go over to you. I'm assuming you're going to go to the Emma Mackey route because you already brought her up a second ago.
No, actually, I was thinking about Brendan Fraser. I can genuinely see Brendan Fraser as like either Papa Kent or Perry White. Like, I really I would like to see him as either of those two guys. Michael Rooker, I'm having a little bit of a hard time like seeing him as Papa Kent. So that's a different Clark Kent, just based on past and stuff. It's a much harder Clark Kent, I would think. But yeah, and then I agree with Frenchie. I can't see Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. It's just something about him. I don't know. He just, I mean, like you said, he's too soft spoken. Maybe I just can't see him going one-to-one or one-on-one with Superman. So I'm actually leaning more towards Alexander Skarsgård for Lex Luthor. He's a much more like imposing figure. I think that he could kind of like at least hold his own on the screen. When it came to like Brainiac, I just saw like Bill Skarsgård has a very Brainiac like head. So
he totally does.
Skarsgård's like they're both great. So either one for either role would be awesome too. The casting's kind of like really decent for this movie. Like I'm not mad at any of these like rumors except maybe Nicholas Hoult, but I'm not even like mad. I'm just like I don't see it, but he could prove me wrong.
Right. Kevin, to go to you. There's two of you. We're going
I'm sorry, Marina. Go ahead.
There's bandana Kevin and non-bandana Kevin.
Yes, there you go.
That's why I put 3 dots of mine. So like dot. All right, so Nicholas Hoult, I actually can see him as Lex Luthor. I think he has the rage. I mean, as kind of a self-absorbed character, because remember, Luthor does have a bit of an ego to him, and I think with him playing in Nicholas Hoult in the Menu, I feel like I could see that a bit of him as Lex Luthor. For Brendan Fraser, Michael Rooker, I think it's gonna be Rooker as Paul Kent, because I think lately he's been putting Rooker in smaller roles in his movies and occasionally killing them off, like with the Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I know he's been in all 3 of them, but I think he's talented, and I feel like he can play a loving Paul Kent. And I think Brendan Fraser could pull Perry White. He's really talented, and and I feel like we could see a different side of Perry White with him. Brainiac. I think Alexander Skarsgård might get this one. I don't know. I don't with the other Skarsgård. Everything. I kind of don't want to see him play something creepy. I someone like Brainiac. I'm like, dude, like play something normal for Christ's sake. I already see you as Pennywise. Stop it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Pause.
I also see him as Pennywise, but he definitely has the head for it. So for Pa Kent, I had in mind like Frank Grillo or David Harbour. Both would be crossovers from the MCU, but I think would be you know they would fit the age range. I would love, as an aside, I guess I would love to see Alan Tudyk in some form or fashion, whether it's like a Dr. Phosphorus, something like that. But I'd like to see a Brainiac like maybe like a female just go off the rails, kind of just something different, like a Zoe Chow. Um, just because why not? I mean, like you could put anybody in there, I guess, but it's just I think taking that role, making it something different would be an interesting way to kick off the DCU.
Yeah. Before I go real quick, I'll go back to you, Frenchie, real quick. You had something you wanted to add.
Yeah, and I was really hoping for a bit more older Lex Luthor too, because to be in all honesty, my casting choice would have been Anthony Starr, who played Homelander in The Boys. He has this evil inside of him, but he can play such an interesting politically correct character, and see that reverse of him going from Homelander, the Superman, to the Lex Luthor would have been interesting. But I really hope that they cast a older Lex Luthor, not make Lex Luthor the same age as Superman.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, unfortunately, I think what I'm about to say is gonna refute your wishes, because this was the bit of news that I learned connected to it this week. And it's interesting that so many like the consensus here, it seems amongst a majority of you, is like Nick Holt maybe has shown shades of where he could do it, but overall, like, some of you guys are not seeing it. So what I heard this week is apparently Holt was the choice for Lex Luthor, so much so that Gunn offered him the role outright before they were ever screen testing Superman. It was, this is yours, take it, be in the film. And it was Holt that wanted to go for Superman, and Gunn said to him, if you do this, you're going to have to audition, you're going to have to screen test, and you're going to have to play ball with the other nominees, essentially. And because Warner is going to be pushing me to cast this film, I can't guarantee the role's going to be yours if we come back around to it and you don't get Superman. And Holt said that he was fine with it. And so he, instead of taking the role that was offered to him, no audition, just straight up, here's your role, he went for Superman. He came close. He got within the final 3, but he did not get it. And so because of that, Warner Brothers, because it's not just Gunn that's casting, it's people from Warner as well, have had time to look at nominees, look at tapes, look at submissions, and they've come up with at least 2 more people that can solidly compete against him. And I'd say that, and the reason I bring that up is because a lot of people have been reporting this, like, oh, unfortunate Nick Holt thing. He made his bed with this one. You kind of have to lie on it. He took a chance at going at the role that he actually wanted instead of taking the role that he was offered. And unfortunately, if it doesn't work out for him, then that was his own choice. That said, that man is still earning residuals from X-Men films, I imagine. Yeah. He's still got a working career. He is not in any bad place, but it's just an interesting bit I learned that he was actually the choice for Gunn. That's where his head went first.
And that's what worries me, though. The fact that he had a juicy offer to play Lex Luthor, and he didn't even see himself playing it. He was like, "No, I want the other guy," So it's like if Hulk passed on it, how really was he prepared to play that role? So I'm not feeling it, man.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. In terms of the other ones, in terms of the other ones that's there, like I said, the Brainiac thing is probably the least official thing of any of the news that I read this week. If they do it, I'd be curious because I don't think Brainiac in any way has ever been in a live action film. I mean, I think he was supposed to be the villain of that Nick Cage film that got canned, but that's the closest it's ever come. Aside from that, there was a supercomputer in the third film, right? Like that's probably the closest we've come to Brainiac.
Well, in Man of Steel, you get his symbol whenever he takes out the World Engine. Brainiac symbol shows up. So and he has those iconic tendrils that are just like chasing him and stuff. So I think it's supposed to be like there was like a hint put in there for Man of Steel, but
they never followed up on it.
Yeah, and Nick Cage is Dr. Frankenstein. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so I'm curious to see if they do go that route and bring it in. I think in some way, shape, or form, Nick Holt's going to end up being, if not in this movie, then very certainly in this universe. It's very publicly known, like amongst reporters, like if you read things, Warner Brother worked with Nick Holt once 10 years ago when they shot Mad Max Fury Road with him, and he was apparently so highly recommended for his, because that was a tough shoot for anyone involved just because of where they were shooting, how they were shooting it, and he was professionally commended for his professionalism and his performance and everything on that set, and Warner Brothers have been doing everything they can to get back in bed with him ever since. It's partially believed that they are driving Gunn to put him in these movies, and that Gunn's receptive to it because he likes Nick Holt and he wants to work with him. Of course, again, he did offer him Luther outright. If he didn't, I don't think he would have done that. He would have auditioned him. But Warner Brothers wants him in these things. So whether it's as Luther or maybe it's a supporting role, I mean, Holt, I think, is a little older than Corn Sweat, so I don't know if you would do this, but even if it's like a Jimmy Olsen or something, you put him in these films, or maybe he's the recognizable face in something like The Authority, which is obviously a Guardians-like unknown superhero team that'll be in this film, spinning off into their own movie. Maybe that's how you get him as vehicle. I think he'll be in these one way or the other. It's just a matter of how. So yeah, any final thoughts before we move on?
I'm curious between either him or who's the one that we never talked about? Was it Jen's?
Was it the character or an actor?
The actress.
Oh, Emma Mackey?
Emma Mackey, yes. I'm thinking, what if possibly that Emma Mackey might play a version of Jimmy Olsen? You probably
I could see that.
Jimmy Olsen. I feel like with the rumor casting, I mean, of something different. I think that could possibly be her.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see them making Jimmy Olsen. I like if you're gonna bend any character, I could see them making Jimmy Olsen a female.
As long as you make it like kind of like a very platonic relationship where they're very clearly best friends. They're not there's not any kind of
Superman's got enough women out there who want to bang him. We don't need to bring Jimmy into this. Okay?
Yeah, exactly. If it's like a platonic relationship, that'd be cool.
So in that case, you make Jenny Olsen queer and lesbian. It's solved.
It doesn't have to be.
You just make it not romantic.
Somebody tweet at James Gunn so he can shoot us down publicly and then take the idea and use it. I'm totally okay with it.
Oh yeah. I love that.
All right, guys. So we'll go ahead. We're not done with the casting news yet. We're going to go ahead and jump into another one. I said a few weeks ago that I would not spend every single week talking about Superman and Fantastic Four, but since we talked about Superman, and there have been more developments in the last few weeks with Fantastic Four in terms of rumors being reported, let's talk about the latest in that film. Since we talked about Superman, let's talk about the other blockbuster film that's amassing casting rumors around Hollywood, Fantastic Four. Here's the latest in what's being reported. Despite looking like a total lock, it's now looking more likely that Adam Driver may not end up being Mr. Fantastic. As we've discussed before, Marvel has a total budget of around 60 to 70 million for casting all 4 leads, and it's thought that Driver may have actually priced himself out with what he wants, similar to what Emma Stone did. Should Driver wind up not being in the role, it's believed that they will move on to their next 2 choices on the list, that being Suicide Squad star Joel Kinnaman and former Doctor Who actor Matt Smith. Reportedly, the reason that these are the next 2 actors on the list is because they both have a recognizable enough face and successful enough careers that people will recognize them, which is what they want in Mr. Fantastic, but not successful enough that they can demand as much money as the stars they've been chasing after, the likes of Adam Driver. Margot Robbie is looking all but out of the race for the Invisible Woman as well, despite looking like the favorite at one point. The backup choices remain the same, with Vanessa Kirby and Jodie Comer, excuse me, Jesus Christ, I cannot clear my throat for the life of me while recording these, with Vanessa Kirby and Jodie Comer being the competing choices for the role. It's also worth noting that those 2 actresses were Matt Shakman's favorites from the beginning, so at least in one front he'll get what he wants. While for a while Paul Mescal was looking like the favorite for Johnny Storm, his reluctance to do another blockbuster immediately after Gladiator 2 is making Marvel's head turn. Where is it turning to? One of his Gladiator co-stars in Stranger Things breakout star Joseph Quinn, who's apparently also being eyed for the role now. And finally, Daveed Diggs looks to be a lock on the Thing, considering his only competitors were previously reported to be Jason Segel and Seth Rogen, despite what you may have read about Mila Kunis. The character's direction has changed. That's pretty obvious. Daveed Diggs is a very different actor from Segel or Rogen. And it seems like there's no competition in that style of thing, and he's okay with what they've offered him in terms of pay. So unless another last-minute shock happens to this casting, it's looking like we can at least say one person is in, for now, sort of, until we see them in costume. All right, so yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, like, there were these headlines going around that had reached the extent of like big fan websites and places that people know were reporting. It's like the Fantastic Four is coming together. It's Adam Driver, it's Margot Robbie, it's Paul Mescal, it's Daveed Diggs, and now it's looking like that's not the case at all, because the biggest strain is the financials, and we talked about this a few weeks ago. Marvel has been making changes to how they structure their budget. We've discussed the fact that they are paying their writers more. They were already doing that ahead of the writer's strike in an attempt to lure in more experienced names to write their scripts. They brought in a few people to begin rewrites ahead of the writer's strike happening. And so that meant the reshuffling on the budgets for casting. And so in order to cast all 4 of these actors, they only want to spend up to about 60, 70 million on these 4 characters, which does mean your mega blockbuster stars like an Emma Stone, and now it's looking like an Adam Driver, are sort of ruled out from that point, because they're going to want a large chunk of change out of that money, and it's going to mean that there's going to be a sense of unfair pay to an extent in terms of how they're breaking down the money. So we'll go ahead and start with, we'll go around kind of, I guess we'll rapid fire this just to go through them. So I'll start with Kevin on this one. Let's talk about Mr. Fantastic. Obviously, the 3 names that were listed there, Adam Driver, the alternates seem to be Joel Kinnaman, Rick Flag from the Suicide Squad, and Matt Smith. Of those names, which stands out to you as your choice?
Me, Kevin.
Moreno, my bad.
So
I'm going to call you Poss, and I'm going to call him Kevin.
That's fine.
So here's what I think. I think probably Matt Smith. I think he has the potential for it, and plus also I feel like Matt Smith is kind of been stuck with failed franchise limbo because he had a very role in Terminator Genesis, and then we saw him last year in Morbius.
Yes,
The Curse.
Yes, so I'm pretty sure this film, if he casts he's perfect for Reed Richards, and I think that could break his curse. I think he has the potential. And he has gravitas, and I think he could pull it off. Joel Kinnaman, I really don't see him as Mr. Fantastic. He's talented. I just don't see him as that.
here and do that. We'll bring the pictures in as we're discussing them. So Frenchie, I'll go to you next then with the reordered screen. Of your 3 options in front of you, if that's who Marvel's looking at, which do you like the most?
None.
Fair enough.
Honestly, none. I would have preferred Driver, because Driver I find fits, but if he's out of the table, Matt Smith I guess it would be Matt Smith, but I don't see him fully immersed in a character that I forget it's Matt Smith. I want to, when I look at Mr. Fantastic, I want to forget the actor, look at the character. I don't do that with Matt Smith anytime. I just see Doctor Who. I'm going to see, hey, Doctor Who found a way to be in Fantastic Four, And Kinnaman, he doesn't feel like a scientist to me. He feels like that jock. He feels like he feels more like an older.
My picture's not helping, but
no, not really. But he feels like he feels like an older Human Torch. You see what I mean? He doesn't feel like a Mr. Fantastic. So, in my opinion, none.
Yeah, to be fair, I did pull a picture from him at Comic-Con one year where, to be fair, in San Diego in the summer, it's hot as fuck, and he showed up like it was. So that's probably on me. I'm sure I could have pulled a better picture. That said, Adam Driver's picture there is from some sort of fucking perfume ad, probably. So, looking more like Aquaman than Mr. Fantastic. Paus, I'll go up to you. Of the options on the table, which do you like the most?
Of the options on the table, I love Adam Driver. I'd love to see him take this role. I hope the newest of new rumors are true, that he's trying to work something out. But if not, and if I had like my own dream casting of what I've heard elsewhere, it would be Ryan Gosling. I think he would be a great Mr. Fantastic.
Alec?
I would say the same. I would much prefer Adam Driver, but if he's not able to do it because of the pay, I would probably go Matt Smith. He's got the enough to draw people in, but I don't think he's as recognizable of a face where it's like it'll overpower. I think he could step out of that. I didn't see Doctor Who when I saw him in House of the Dragon. He was able to become that role. So I would prefer Matt Smith. I agree with Frenchie. Joel Kinnaman looks like a jock. Like he doesn't look like he doesn't look like he's gonna be able. He's the smartest man alive. I'll say, like, at least Matt Smith looks like the smartest man alive. He could play that. I don't see that from Joel Kinnaman. If he said that, I would be like, oh, I don't believe you.
I think in terms of performances, I think obviously because his blockbuster work, like with Kinnaman, the likes of the Suicide Squad films and RoboCop, I don't think that does him justice compared to his smaller work that most people probably haven't seen. I think performance-wise, he probably could go there if he needed to. He could pull it off. But if we're just looking at somebody, and this is meant as a compliment, Matt Smith, and I would say Adam Driver as well, despite what that model ad is showing us, both have a more unconventional look to them. Yeah. Not a look where they couldn't be successful, but you're right. Kinnaman, it's comparable to like The Amazing Spider-Man, where like Garfield as an actor can pull off what they're going for, but he looks like the guy who would beat kids like him up in high school. And I think Kinnaman sort of has that same thing, whereas an actor, I think he could go there, but he kind of looks a little out of what you're thinking for the role.
I just can't.
And obviously, like, multiversal variants, some are the same, some are different. Clearly, Mr. Fantastic is a case of he looks a little different no matter what universe you go to. But we've already seen Krasinski in the MCU, and Kinnaman is a far cry from that, even like really far.
But that's the thing. I don't. Maybe you have news, and I'm in out of loop. But why are they not just casting Krasinski? He was awesome.
I'm asking.
It's more on him. It's more on him than it is them. He wasn't interested in tying down a long-term deal.
I was gonna say, like, I would totally just take him.
At the very least, from what I've heard, he wasn't interested in tying down a long-term deal unless the pay was substantial. And again, with Marvel's new restructuring of pay, that seems to go out of the way. However, from what I've heard from insiders, it seems on Marvel's end that if they do eventually reach a point where they just go, fuck it, we're going to have to go for broke and just pay, they would be willing to go back and try Krasinski ahead of some of the others they've pulled out. It seems like they are kind of starting to reach the bottom of the list here. No offense to Kinnaman or Smith. They're both good actors, just clearly not the first choice. In terms of the Invisible Woman role, we have a bit of a different situation here because, as I said in the video, Marvel is the one's been pushing for the big stars. We heard Emma Stone was given an offer. She countered. Marvel turned her counter down. Margot Robbie was in negotiations. She had the sign of approval from James Gunn to go work with Marvel, and he recommended her, but it's seeming like for whatever reason that's not going to work out. It's not specifically pay. I think it's more timing on her side than anything. But the two that are there on the right side, Jodie Comer and Vanessa Kirby, those were actually Matt Shakman's choices. And it was Marvel that said, if we're going to put a big star in this, we want it to be Invisible Woman over any of the others. Similar, possibly because in the previous films, Invisible Woman has been usually one of the smaller scale actors of the bunch. In Jessica Alba and Kate was it Jessica Alba? No, that seems wrong. Is that right?
Yeah, it was Jessica Alba.
It was, okay.
That's how I remember
like Jessica Alba and Kate Mara, I feel like at the time were probably some of the smaller people in that group when they got casted. But those were his two choices, were Comer and Vanessa Kirby. It's also worth noting, again, the small details I've read. Apparently, if it is Comer that gets cast, Adam Driver is willing to play a bit more ball because he's worked with Jodie Comer before on The Last Duel. So part of it is, again, a bit of I want to see who I'm working with, and if I'm working with people I know I work well with and I know I like, maybe we can play ball a bit with the negotiations. But I'll start with Frenchie this time around. Of the options on the table, what do you like?
Well, I'm really happy Margot Robbie is not the contender right now because I just don't see it. No. But for me, Vanessa Kirby is my future wife. By the way,
Congrats.
She is intense. She's awesome because she can also play sensitive and loving. She has this really wide range. The other actress, I only know her from Killing Eve, so I just have this aftertaste of Psychotic, which I'm sure she can do more than that, but I just know her as a psychotic woman. My personal choice would have been Samara Weaving from Babysitter and Ready or Not. I find she would have been even better, but since she's off the table, my choice is for Vanessa Kirby.
Kevin, or pass over to you.
I'm gonna go with Jodie Comer. I think she could really do a good job. I love her in Killing Eve. Did a great job. She was in Free Guy and The Last Duel, which, if the driver thing works out, then there's already a connection there. But speaking of connections, my dream casting would be Emily Blunt, which means I would want Krasinski as my Reed Richards. That way, that all worked out. So
I'll throw more because I don't like to include every detail in the videos I make. Otherwise, they'd go on for 5 minutes. But I'll throw another thing I've heard out there. She wants it even less than Krasinski does. So
right, okay.
He's at least willing. He'd be at least willing to play ball if an offer came to the table, especially because he's done it already. But she has no interest in doing it. So.
Gotcha. Well, then I'll go with Jodie Comer.
Alec?
I don't actually think I've seen anything that these women are in, so I don't really have a choice. But if getting Comer means you get Adam Driver, I would take that for sure. I've never seen Killing Eve, and I haven't seen the Last Duel either, so I don't know. I don't know anything that these women have done. So, but they both look great.
You see Mission Impossible, right?
To throw out some other roles, just in case you didn't know they were in it. Jodie Comer was in Free Guy. If anybody saw that,
I haven't seen that.
And Vanessa Kirby was in the last Mission Impossible film. She's also going to be in 7 coming up.
Okay, so they both look great. I'm not opposed to either of them. I don't really have a choice for Invisible Woman. Samara Weaving sounds great though. That would be amazing.
I believe, again, from what I've heard, they looked at every Hollywood blonde, so I'm sure she was looked at. And for one reason or another, they just haven't pursued it yet. But who knows? At the rate that they're pursuing actors, it could come around if everyone else says no.
I feel like it's changing a lot. They don't seem like they're making a decision anytime soon, it seems.
Yeah, that's true. I do agree 100% with Frenchie though that I just Margot Robbie doesn't seem to fit this role for me at all.
It would have felt weird.
She might fit a different role in this universe, but this is not it. So I'm kind of happy.
So out of the two, like I really like Free Guy, and also, and I really want this Kirby in the Mission Possible Fallout, and I can't wait to see her in Dead Reckoning Part 1. And I know both of them two are really good actors, but if it takes her to get Adam Driver, then I'm gonna go with. I lost her track of her name.
Jodie Comer.
I'm gonna go with Jodie Comer on this one.
Yeah. I was gonna say I thought of another one. I just again throwing out films just in case somebody didn't know that was them in it. Vanessa Kirby was in Hobbs and Shaw. If anyone saw that.
Yeah, but yeah, we're all again.
But yeah, of the three on screen, for me personally, I would go with Jodie Comer. You're right. Margot Robbie, I feel like, is a specific kind of big where it's all like Margot Robbie became instantly famous overnight in a way that's very weird. Like, it doesn't happen very often. I mean, like, if you think about it, her breakout role was Wolf of Wall Street, where she, like, which was 2013. And within 3 years, she was a celebrity cameo giving you financial facts out of a bathtub in The Big Short. Like, it took that long for her to reach that point where she's a celebrity you would recognize alongside the likes of Selena Gomez, who had been a kid when she became famous. Like, it's an insane amount of fame very quickly. And I feel like it would have been distracting, right? She works for something like Barbie. For this, I think it is a little more distracting. Of the other two, now Vanessa Kirby was in, I think it's called Pieces of a Woman, which she was nominated for. I believe she does have an Academy nomination under her belt, if I remember correctly, which I never saw. So off of what I've seen, I would go with Comer because I've seen a little more diversity in her performances from what I've seen. From Free Guy to The Last Duel, those are two very different films. And her performances are very different, but I think both of them are good enough that they could make it work. And again, if the director himself instantly said, these are my two, I hope it ends up being one of those two.
Yeah.
Because if that was his instinct, then, I'm sure it's not going to be wrong. Then we'll go to the third one, Human Torch. This has been one of the weird ones because, like, unlike the other roles where it's like at various points, it's like there's been a number one choice. It seems like there's been about 10 different names that have circulated this thing, and Marvel's basically just like, yeah, let's see who wants it. Over the course of the last few months, I've heard Glenn Powell was looked at one point. I've heard Dacre Montgomery was looked at one point. John Boyega was looked at. Lakeith Stanfield was looked at. Going back to Stranger Things, the third time, Joe Keery was looked at for this role. Like, everyone of a certain age and a certain personality type in Hollywood has been looked at for this role. And this is where they're settling right now between these two gentlemen in front of us. So I'll start with Poss first. Obviously, both not the most familiar actors, not the biggest abundance of work again. But between Mescal and Quinn, of what you know of them, who do you favor?
I think I'm gonna have to go with Mescal. I mean, it's kind of honestly, it's kind of I could pick either. But Mescal in the Lost Daughter did a great job, and I think he has the ability to have some, like, serious moments and some comedic moments, and show up when he needs to and kind of stay in the background when he needs to.
Alec?
last thing I saw Mescal in was After Sun, and that movie is his performance in that movie is devastating. So like seeing that and then thinking like Human Torch, it's completely off, but I'm not opposed to seeing it because I would like to see like a higher tier actor like bring a little bit more to the Human Torch. Like Chris Evans is great, but he was the typical Human Torch in that movie. So I would like to see maybe a little bit more. So if they cast Mescal, that's cool. I don't. All I know of Joseph Quinn from is Stranger Things. He's great in Stranger Things. He fits the typical bill of what I think he could play Johnny Storm pretty well. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. But if you're gonna spend the money, and you're not gonna go spend the money on Adam Driver, spend the money on Mescal because I think he's a great actor and can really bring a lot to this role.
Kevin.
This is interesting because I'm not familiar with any of them too. So I guess I get by the look. I guess I'm gonna go with I think Paul Mescal.
Mescal's on the left, Joseph Quinn is on the right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Paul Mescal.
All right, and then Frenchie, down to you.
This is a flip a coin. I barely remember. I know he's the guy who played the Metallica song for in Stranger Things. That's about it. I don't really remember that much his performance because me personally, I wanted to go to route which she went before and cast as like a half brother type of thing, and I would have personally cast Max Huang who played Kung Lao in the new Mortal Kombat. Give a bit of diversity, and he's an awesome actor that I want to see more and more. Else than that, I really don't care about those two actors right now, so I don't have a choice.
Fair enough. I think on the outset, when you look at their two biggest roles, you look at Stranger Things and you look at After Sun, I think to most people, Quinn probably feels like the more correct choice because I feel like that character is a bit closer to what you think of when you look at least the very least the other Johnny Storm performances from Evans and from Michael B. Jordan. But I think Alex said it perfectly. Mescal is just probably straight up the better actor. Now that said, Quinn has a chance to grow and he has a chance to prove himself. They're both going to be in Ridley Scott's Gladiator together, so maybe that movie will be the performance that puts Quinn over the top. But at this moment, only one of them has been in an Oscar-nominated film and is one of the youngest leading actors to be nominated for Best Actor. And if I can get that guy in my like as my younger sister, who weirdly enough, her film fan is the biggest of blockbusters and the smallest of indies. Like weirdly enough, it's the complete dichotomy of what she's into. And her response is like, Marvel may not do better than someone like Mescal you're looking at his age range, but he is almost too good for them based on what he's done. So if they can land him, that's a really good land. And then we'll move on. But I'll just throw up briefly. Is anyone opposed to Daveed Diggs playing the Thing? Anyone have any real opposition to this?
Who is he?
Do it.
Well, in terms of cinema, he is most recently the voice of Sebastian the Crab. In terms of he's probably most known for his work in Hamilton. He was also in the film Blindspotting.
Blindspotting is great.
Yes.
The best part about this is that Ben Grimm is Jewish and Daveed Diggs is half Jewish, and so making that connection, I think, is so awesome. And also being able to bring in a black Thing is going to be it's going to be so cool. Like,
yeah. And I have to say, like, kudos to Marvel casting, because everything that I had heard was when they were initially putting this film together. By the way, the Mila Kunis thing was not real. Don't believe it. It was never true. But what I'd heard about this was they originally intended for Thing to be kind of an older character, almost as if like an in-group mentor sort of figure, like a best friend to Reed in the way he has in the past, but more of a mentor overall to the three. And the two favorites they were looking at were Siegel and Rogan, and it was basically those two. It was like, this is what we're thinking of when we think of this character. This is what we want. Which, again, if you want somebody Jewish to play a character who is Jewish, you can't get any Jewier than Seth Rogen. But It's like that was what they're going for, and kudos to Marvel to go, okay, neither of these guys are interested. Both were, from what I read, both of them were pretty nervous about the CGI aspect of it, the mocap aspect of it, just both very unfamiliar with it. So it was kind of like, I don't really know. And kudos to Marvel for just going, okay, we know what we want out of this interpretation of the character. They don't want it. Let's switch up completely and go a different direction and rewrite. And I think Daveed Diggs is a good actor, so good for him for if he lands it. Good for him for getting that role. So with that said, we'll go ahead and move into the next segment, which will be a bit briefer, and then we'll get into Secret Invasion. That's what it's called. Yes. Which is we're going to discuss now. In the last few weeks, we've been discussing the movies that have come out in detail. Last week's big release was No Hard Feelings, which wasn't worth a spoiler discussion on, but there is something worth talking about connected to it. So first, we're going to set up the film really briefly for a quick review from myself and one of our panelists. So here's that. No Hard Feelings, the first straight-up R-rated sex comedy in what feels like years, hit theaters last week. Maddie Barker, played by Academy Award winner Jennifer Lawrence, is a 32-year-old Uber driver desperately struggling to move on from a past that hurt her and to get her life together. In a desperate act to save her childhood home, she takes a, quote, job from a pair of rich parents who hire her to, well, bluntly put, date, fuck, and help their 19-year-old introverted son develop some world experiences before he goes off to college. However, upon meeting Percy, portrayed by Broadway star Andrew Barth Feldman in his feature film debut, she realizes that she's got her work cut out for her. This is Lawrence's first real comedy since her role back on the Bill Engvall show over a decade ago. And yes, for those of you who didn't know, Jennifer Lawrence did start on a sitcom, the closest being Adam McKay's Don't Look Up prior to this. She also produces the film, which was co-written and directed by Gene Stupnitsky, best known for his movie Good Boys and his recent hit show on Amazon, Jury Duty. The film can currently be seen in theaters. All right, so myself and Kevin right now, French will be back in just a moment. Myself and Kevin are the only two who have seen it, so we're not going to go into full spoilers for this one. But Kevin, what are your brief thoughts on the film before we get into the actual discussion topic?
It was good. It was good. Pretty funny. It's not raunchy as it kept saying it is, but it's still funny. Jennifer Lawrence is really hilarious, and it's great to see her in a comedy. She acts well with the boy, which he's 19, which is strange. Which is strange calling him a boy, but he's really good. There are really funny jokes. There's a scene where Jennifer Lawrence is naked. I put it in quote because, by the way, she used CGI, which is fine. It's fine if she wants to work with CGI naked body, which is fine. But there is a really funny joke with that, and there's a really hilarious joke with a Chinese finger trap. I like it. I kind of wish it went up with the raunchiness, but it's still funny. It's worth to see, if not see in theaters, see when it comes to streaming. 3 out of 5.
Yeah, in terms of comedies, again, as I said, it's the first real comedy to go to theaters in, it feels like forever. It feels like every comedy in the last few years that's gone to theaters is like a something comedy. There's like another angle to it where it's trying to be a little deeper, or a little smarter, or it's bending genres, or whereas this is just a straight up comedy. I agree with a lot of what Kevin said. When the movie does do raunchy humor, I think it does it really funny. Probably, again, Kevin said, without giving the actual punchline away, the movie sets up a Chinese finger trap joke, and when it comes back around to it and to deliver the punchline later in the film, it's one of the funniest laughs in the movie. This does feel like those 2000s comedies where you go see it with a crowd and everybody's laughing and having fun. Like, it was definitely a good time to see. It's not as raunchy as it sells itself to be. There is something a little more emotional to the humor in it. It's not just straight raunch the entire time, but I think when it does do the raunchy comedy, it does make it funny. And yes, Jennifer Lawrence does have a full frontal nude scene in it that wasn't technically a full frontal nude scene. They did partially use CGI to recreate her body. However, if you are the one person out there who's age appropriate enough to be interested in this, the kid goes full frontal at one point. You don't see his penis. They did not show that, but he does get actually naked on screen. So again, if you are age appropriate and interested in that, to all you 17-year-old girls that watch our show, go check that out. It's in theaters now.
75-year-old men.
Oh God, please don't.
God, no.
I knew one of those guys when I worked at a movie theater. He had a stained shirt and a newspaper, and we all did not trust him. But yeah, no, in terms of a score, since every week Matt and I usually give our scores, I'd give this a solid 8. I think for what it is, honestly, if you saw Good Boys or you saw his most recent show, Jury Duty, I'd compare it to those. It is like, for what it's going for, it just works. Like, it just works. It nails what it's going for. It's not perfect. There's a joke that's not going to land here or there, but overall, it does work for what it's going for. Also, I've not seen the show myself, but one of the co-stars of the recent hit show, The Bear, is in this movie. So I guess if you want to see someone from that show in a very, very different role from what I've heard, you can check this movie out as well. So that's the brief review on the film, but the discussion about it is, there was a lot of talk before this movie came out about, should a film like this even exist, right? Like the basic premise of it. And by the way, this is based on a true premise, sort of like Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates from a few years ago. This is based on an actual Craigslist ad that somebody found. The only difference is, whereas that movie is actually based on the real story of what happened, this was based on a Craigslist ad they found, investigated for details, and then chose to write a fictional movie around because, well, as the director frankly put, they didn't want to find out the real answer to that Craigslist ad. They didn't want to know if somebody actually did this or not. It made it easier to write about it if they didn't. But this is based on a real thing that somebody did, where overprotective parents worried about an introverted son post a Craigslist ad attempting to hire somebody to hang out with and sleep with their son in order to open up his world experiences before he goes off to college. And in this instance, Jennifer Lawrence is a just over 30 woman doing it. And there does bring an ethical question into, should this movie even exist, is what a lot of people have asked. And a lot of the cast members in the film have come to the movie's defense. But to me, the most interesting one was in an interview given by the actor himself who plays the kid in question, Andrew Barth Feldman. And it's worth noting that this is, he's a kid who a couple of years ago, he played the starring role in Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway. I don't believe he took over the role from Ben Platt. I believe there was at least one person in between, but he did play the role during its Broadway run. And so this was a kid that had movie offers, and then the pandemic happened and he didn't take any of them. And this was the first one that he did. And I'll go ahead. Because it wasn't in video, it was an article, I just reread the quote. But this is what he had to say on both the concept of the film, and then he was asked later on about what the film has to say about basically a young men's virginity and young men's sort of sexual stance in the world and what are expected of men. I think we all had a sense that this is a controversial premise, but the film never condones the things that Jennifer's character does or that my character's parents do. This is a movie about flawed people, and it's cringe comedy. You're meant to cringe. You're meant to sit with those uncomfortable feelings. I do fear that we're getting, or have gotten, to a place where societally we don't like to sit with those uncomfortable feelings through movies, and especially in comedy. Obviously, on social media, we're rewarded in numbers by having the most inflammatory take on something before we even know what it's actually like. But I think if there was ever a real sense of panic about the premise, we wouldn't have made the movie in the first place. When then asked about the concept of masculinity portrayed in the film, Barth Feldman said, "As much as we've evolved socially, there's still this inherent pressure for young men to be sexual, or at the very least meet a certain expectation of having sex by a certain age, or to be sexual by a certain age, even if they don't want to be at all. I think we have much more vocabulary now to talk about our emotions than we did in the years past, but the pressure still exists. If this movie normalizes anything, I hope it's wanting to find love and connection with somebody, even if it's not romantic, because that's really what we all want. And I think men, especially, get asked to shut that down and not prioritize it." And so that second part, just to give a little bit more of the plot that explains it, comes in the fact that in the movie, the dad explains that part of the reason they set up this ad in the first place is because they're concerned that their son's introversion and sort of being shut off from the world is also affecting his basically his sexual advancement for his age. There's a concern of, is he behind for his age? There's even a scene where the dad recounts a time when he was a younger man and was with a slightly older woman and what it meant for him and wanting to recreate that for his son. And so it does ask, I mean, again, it's still a laugh out loud comedy in which you get to see Jennifer Lawrence's titties fling around on a beach. It is not by any means a deep film, but it does bring up the topic of discussion when asking, should this film even exist? Kevin, I'll go to you. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like this movie it should exist. I feel like we're nowadays we're kind of no longer push not wanting to talk about these topics. We're kind of pretty much saying, leave it to the parent, leave it to the parents, because they're not going to talk about this. Here's the thing, I'm 30 years old. I never had this chat with my parents at all. I never had the sex talk. I never had any of that talk. I had to learn it from the internet and movies and TV. That's where I learned that from. And if we want to, if people want to we can't have this talk. We have to let people talk in private. Then talk to it in private. If you're really gonna see it, don't just not say we can't talk, we can't put it in media, we can't put it in media. No, put it in media. If you're not gonna talk about it, then the media do it. They have pretty much more of a knowledge than any other grown adult would.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. So obviously the other guys here, you have not seen the movie, of course, but I don't think you need to see the film to speak on the concept of the topic at all, because I think for once on this show, for the first time in 19 episodes, we're discussing a more serious topic and have people who can actually relate to it, because usually it's questions of gender or diversity or things within the actual Hollywood system. And I don't think it's a secret that we're a movie news discussion show in which my panel of guests are based off of who I work with closely on the other shows that we do. And we're not exactly the most gender diverse or necessarily racially diverse group. And that doesn't mean sometimes that we have the most diverse opinions on things. But this is something that I think a lot of people can relate to. And so it's good to talk about. Poss, I'll start with you first. What are your thoughts on the idea of people challenging this film existing, and then what he had to say about it?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, of course, I looked up the film and some of the audience reviews and whatnot before coming in because I haven't seen it. But basically what I get is the film is trying to balance a raunchy comedy with a heartfelt coming of age story, which I appreciate, and I think that's an awesome thing in this time, in this age. But if you think back, like all throughout history and all throughout cinema, like Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator, and Blazing Saddles, like there are a lot of movies that they're food for thought, basically, on the problems of the human race. So I feel like I get the vibe that this might fit in with those movies, as yes, it's a little harsh. Yes, it may take things a little too far here and there, but we might need it, as a whole, as the human race, just to see and learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And as it was said briefly there in the interview on the front of mistakes, like the movie is very clear about the fact that everyone who is a part of this scheme to some extent knows that it's not okay, but they're going through with it anyways. And then on the kids side of things, like everyone who's involved very firmly gets told that they're in the wrong. Like once, as things do in these movies, there's, the classic tropes of the truth comes out, the liar's revealed, everybody mopes and dopes for a bit, and then they all come back together at the end. But in that segment of the film, it's made clear, hey, you are very fucking much in the wrong with this.
Even with Jennifer Lawrence's character, they pretty much feel like she has a very good reason. It's still morally wrong, but she has a still good reason of it. So
yeah. So like even if there's a morality to how she's going about it, like the film still says, no, you were wrong for this, but a little less so. Frenchie, I'll go to you next. What are your thoughts on like the concept of the film being made, what the kid had to say, all of it?
For me, I'll always remember a part when I was in university and I was in sexology, and one of the classes was sex and religion. And before the first class ever started, the teacher did say, "Look, we're not here to justify or to see if this was what the actions of the people in the past is right or wrong. We're here to understand it." And that for me is the same way here. Cinema is not just about what is popular, what is supposed to be okay in today's day and age. It's supposed to also look at things that are hard to digest or are still human nature. Like, I didn't get it before, but my dad said before I lost him, you'll see when you become a parent, being a parent is almost a mental disease. you do not act accordingly as what you should. You start going irrational and start doing things to project your life because you want your kid to either live it or live a different life that you live. So you do anything that goes beyond what you should be doing for the actual sake of their kid. It's an interesting study, and it should be studied and not just dismissed because it's controversial. If not, what is the point of cinema? We would just get roses and dandelion movies that will not push our limits of what should be studied. So is it okay we did it? No. Should it still be studied and understood because it's part of humanity? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make a great point there about like specifically from the angle of parents like wanting to shape experiences. Like obviously in nowhere near as sexual a way as the parents act in this film, which to be fair, when Ferris Bueller is your dad, he's just going to want you to get laid. I totally understand that. But actually, I have to say, shout out to Matthew Broderick. It was nice to see him in something again, because when the fuck was he in something last? But like I can say for certain, like with my parents, with both of them having been born and raised in Ireland, so not only obviously like there's the thing of everybody's raised in a different time, but they were raised in a totally different culture and society in that sense from being raised here in America. And neither of them, for different reasons, making the choice to not go through college. I felt that growing up, if they were feeling the pressure of, oh, fuck, we probably should have done that. We want to make sure our kid does that. And yeah, you're right. In various ways, it does deflect onto the kid to some extent. I think you're right in terms of, like, this is a comedy. It's meant to make you laugh. But cinema on a whole is also a study of society because you're remaking and mimicking and doing different things that you see. Yeah. This was obviously based off a very real ad where two parents felt they had a justified enough reason for doing this. And so it's like, yeah, you're right. Alec, I'll go over to you. You come from a similar mindset of you have a kid as well. So what are your thoughts?
I never had strict parents really. So I'm not very strict with my son. I don't really like the idea of, like being able to pick what movies can and can't be made. This one, obviously, like the actor was saying, at no is it condoning what happens in the movie. It's just a story. It's something that they found and they decided to like, well, this is a crazy idea, and then just wrote something. Like it's just a little piece of entertainment. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's not meant to be like, oh, I should do that for my son. If you leave this movie and you think that like you should follow what any of these people do in this movie, the actor was kind of saying like that's not really on the movie, that's on you. Like you have a much bigger issue. If you're pulling that from this movie, like you have something a little, it's not the movie, it's a little bit you. So these kind of raunchy comedies I grew up on, I watched them I think the same way a lot of us did. Is like my parents weren't necessarily like, we're like, you can watch whatever you want. Like they just didn't like watch if I was watching it somewhere else. I was just watching it in another house.
The crude example I've always used is from a far too young an age, considering this movie and myself are about the same age. One of the first probably R-rated comedies I saw as a kid because my parents were watching it. I walked in and no one kicked me out. Was American Pie. So I've seen that movie a number of times over the years. I think it's of that era of comedies. I think it's one of the funnier ones. At no point have I ever wanted to fuck an apple pie. There is no part of me that's ever thought that that's a good idea. I love that somebody jumped in the back right as I said that sentence. That was awesome.
I was just about to say I heard it.
That was all, yeah. At no point have I ever wanted to fuck an apple pie. So you're right about like the actions.
I love Dirty Dancing because that was I don't know if it's I actually don't know if it's rated R, but it probably should be.
It's pretty raunchy, man.
That was like my first experience with higher, not cartoon movies, not kiddie movies.
Dirty Dancing is PG-13.
Oh, there's a whole different world out there.
Here's the thing. At a very young age, you think I was around 8 or 9. I think before renting with my whole family, my mom, my dad, my brother, we went to the movies, and for my very first, I think I first remember R-rated movie in theaters, not an action movie, was not another teen movie. And and the only time they were told me to cover my eyes was during any nudity or sex involved. That was it. They still don't like.
Yeah. And I don't get.
They're like, I was not old enough to understand it yet, but they're like, hey, cover your eyes, like you're not old enough to get to watch this yet, but you can laugh at the jokes of it. They're like, okay.
And honestly, I don't get society. Like they stick on this, but yet they're okay with a biopic about Hitler or Daimler, like studying psycho killers and everything, the dark side of human, because we're fascinated by that. Once it comes to sex, it's like,
I was gonna say, and then I'll move us on so we can get on to Secret Invasion. Like, as you bring up that point, or Kevin, I'll let you get your point, or Poss, I'll let you get your point in last, and then we'll move on.
No, I'm good. So,
but like what I was gonna say is like you're talking about other movies. Just last year or the year before, I forget which one. It was the year before. We had Licorice Pizza, which was a movie about a high school age kid falling in love with and being with an older woman of a similar enough age gap. And that was taken deadly seriously and told as like a love story in which the two end up together by the end. And I mean, there were some people who were uncomfortable with it, but overall that movie was like miraculously praised as PTA's next art piece. Whereas like if we're going to go near that topic, I prefer it being done this way over like, I thought Licorice Pizza was really well made, but I had to dock it points because I just couldn't enjoy it at any point because it's such a weird, like, especially being a substitute teacher and working in schools, the fact that she met him in a school when he was in school as a student, like the whole thing was just too weird for me to like enjoy. So if we're going to do it, I'd rather it be done in this way where it's a comedy, it's for laughs, everyone involved knows it's wrong, and those who commit the wrong get told they're wrong.
Yeah.
So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and move into Secret Invasion. At this point, we're going to do a panel swap here. Kevin, unfortunately, he's a busy man. He's about to go. You're going on vacation, right? That's what it is?
That is true.
So, yeah. So he unfortunately has not seen the show. But, Kevin, I want to thank you for co-hosting with me, man. Thank you for being here. We'll have you back on in the near future. He is going to head out and joining us on the show, audio only, as I go ahead and get it changed here. Where is it? There it is. All right. Joining us on the show is Madi or Raymond, who will come in and tap out for Kevin. Madi, welcome to the show.
Kevin, I wish I could have a vacation. That sounds like a dream right now.
Yeah.
How's it doing?
Yeah, man. How you doing, buddy?
I'm tired, but I'm good.
Absolutely.
It's
well, we're happy to have you here. I have the audio avatars on screen because if not, I definitely have forgotten people in the past. So I want to make sure you're right there in front of me. So I don't forget
that's
about
fair.
you.
I just didn't think you guys wanted to see the inside of the on-call room. It's not really that. It's weird. It's weird. And the lighting
I was
shit,
gonna say,
didn't want to worry about it.
I've seen Scrubs. How accurate? No, I'm kidding.
It's it's not that bad, but it's not great.
All right, so we'll go ahead. We'll give Medea a chance to get settled in. We'll let Frenchie get back here. We'll go ahead and intro.
I'm here.
Okay, we'll go ahead and intro Secret Invasion. At this point, I am going to issue the spoiler warning for the show from here on out, from the video on out. We're going to be talking spoilers about Secret Invasion. So if you have not seen it, tune out, come back when you've seen it. Let's get into it. Here is the sort of intro first. Secret Invasion, the latest entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, began airing on Disney Plus last week. Samuel L. Jackson finally takes a starring role as Nick Fury, who's been off-world and distant since returning from the limbo during the blip. He must return to his old planet and re-team with old allies to stop a rogue group of Skrulls who plan to infiltrate and take over innocent lives on Earth. Episode 1 focuses on Fury's return to the planet, including seeing him re-team with Skrull ally Talos and Maria Hill to begin investigating the rebel Skrulls, who are led by Gravik, and includes Talos' daughter, Gaia. Episode 2 focuses on the political fallout of a terrorist attack committed by Gravik, and the personal fallout Nick Fury deals with following his disbandment from Talos and the death of Hill. In addition to Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, Don Cheadle, Martin Freeman, and Kobe Smulders all return in supporting roles, alongside MCU newcomers Killian Scott, Dermot Mulroney, Emilia Clarke, Olivia Colman, and Kingsley Ben-Adir, who co-stars as the rebel leader Gravik. Reception of the first 2 episodes was mixed, but on the positive side, and fans and critics alike hope it'll only get better as the show continues for the remaining 4 episodes. The show is produced and written by Kyle Bradstreet and directed by Ali Salim. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. The first 2 episodes of Secret Invasion. Medea, since you're joining the show for this, I'll start with you first. What were your thoughts on the opening 2 episodes of the show?
I liked them. I don't know what it is. I think there's something about the show that is holding it back from me, but I can't quite tell you what it is yet. You know what I mean? Like it has potential to be really good, but I think a lot of these Marvel shows have had really good first 4 or 5 episodes, and then they have like a really weird like superhero kind of last episode, and that's always thrown me out. Like Moon Knight I loved until the final episode had kind of tampered. WandaVision was the same thing. Loki I had a problem with one of the middle episodes, but like all of these shows have really like well done shows for like most of it, and then there's always that one episode. So I think right now I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop on this one,
and seeing
if it does, and then see how it goes. Like, but so far I'm hopeful. I'm really enjoying the performances. I think Olivia Colman is fantastic. Sam Jackson's doing a really nuanced performance for a character he's been playing for 15 years now, I guess. Ben Mendelsohn's doing wonderful, and I love I'm going to get his name wrong. Kingsley Ben-Adir, is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah. I loved him in One Night in Miami, and he's doing another phenomenal job on this show. So the acting and the writing and everything is going well. I think I'm just hesitant because I feel like something's going to happen where I'm just like, all right, well, there's that episode where everything goes fucked.
I was going to say the first time I ever saw that guy in something is for any of you people who actually watch the stuff that goes to Disney Plus that's not Marvel or Star Wars. He was in the Anna Kendrick film Noelle as her love interest, where she's like the daughter of Santa. And I spent the entire film calling him Almost Drake. Because especially in that film, like he looks like a lighter skinned version of Drake almost. I never saw One Night in Miami, unfortunately, but I heard he was excellent in it, and I think
he's fantastic.
The show so far.
Yeah.
So I think I can finally stop calling him Almost Drake. He is.
I think he's earned that. He's earned people learning his name. But no, like One Night in Miami, he's fantastic in, and he's just continuing it in this. So I really see him having like a really strong career, and especially having a Marvel thing pulling you up. But like there's something that I'm just waiting for, like that's gonna be like, oh, there it is, and then I'm going, all right, so now it's like a regular Marvel show like all the other ones.
Yeah, it's like there's always like it always seems like it always comes. So there's always an episode where it's like, okay, Frenchie, I'll go to you. What are your thoughts so far?
Again, I will convey Med's sentiment that it has potential, but I'll disagree with him. I actually don't like the performances. Nick Fury is maybe the best thing out of it, but the rest, I don't care about the characters. Like the acting of like episode 2 of The Council, like the actors that play the council, they seem wooden. I did not believe the performances. I'm not hooked right now. Again, do I see a couple of glimpses of hope, especially like the action scene in the butcher shop in episode 2 is badass. Disney does badass great. The characters is a different story, and I'm like Rhodes too. In episode 2, if he felt, I don't know, something about it doesn't feel connected to the rest of the performances. Maybe that's how good Sam L. Jackson is, but I just feel that it doesn't follow.
Yeah, Alec, up to you.
So my like going away from these 2 episodes, I was like I liked what I saw. I had a good time, but like coming away from like walking away from it, it's not like memorable in any way. I'm not like looking forward to the next episode. Like I wouldn't mind watching the next episode, but I'm not like, it's as soon as it comes out, I'm not going to watch it immediately. It's just, it hasn't gotten my attention yet. The performances are good. I do like Sam Jackson, and I love Olivia Colman in this role. I think she's having so much fun. Because she's having fun, I'm having fun. Like I laughed a bunch of times. Like a couple of times I turned to my girl and I was like she's a gangster. Like she's legit. I don't know why I'm drawn to her. Amelia Clark hasn't really shown anything for me yet. But the kid that plays Gravik, I think he really commands a lot of presence. He has a look that is way better than the other Skrulls. I think the Skrulls are probably the biggest issue with the show, which is weird because they're the main villain. I'm hoping it goes somewhere. Secret Invasion is a great comic series, but at least now I'm not like drawn in. And the Rhodes thing felt weird. I don't know why that scene didn't vibe. Like he was even whenever in Infinity War or with especially in Civil War, like he goes with the flow, but he's never like just outright like smug about it. He was kind of smug, with Sam Jackson, which felt weird. With Nick Fury, considering like it felt like there was a lot of hostility. I don't know, maybe it goes somewhere, but for now it didn't fit.
It felt out of character, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe it goes somewhere though. I don't know.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, okay. The writer did. I didn't hear my name. Like, okay. Oh, I thought he was gonna say something. He's gonna say something before my name. Okay. But
no, you're good.
But I really like this. I'm really getting a really tense spy thrill. This one on the same vein as Winter Soldier. Sam Jackson is really amazing in this. I'm glad we're seeing fully Fury in this. While in past MCU movies we've only seen a brief appearances, excluding Captain Marvel. I'm glad we see a fully focused Nick Fury series. Olivia Colman is amazing. I love her performance, especially in the second episode of what she does into this role. It's really awesome, really cool, great. Emily Clark, I've not seen. I guess it's more of like so far not much, but I'm like, but good. I'm interested. The guy who plays Gravik, so far, I hate him enough that I sadly want to punch the actor in the face, especially after the end of the first episode. If like he's playing a good enough villain where I'm like, I hate you. I want to punch you in the face so badly, like, and I'm like, I'm sorry. You're really good. You're really a talented actor, but I just want to punch you in the face right now after I just seen Secret Invasion. And Ben Wilson is really great, especially after the conversation he and Fury have in the train. That was so amazing. I can't wait to the episode 3 to see what happens.
Yeah. So this show to me, and I'll get into because I agree with what some of you guys kind of preluded to, which is that like I like the show enough so far. I thought the second episode was a vast improvement over the first. I actually wasn't the biggest fan of the first episode, but this show to me has the same issue that I think a lot of these shows that were developed right at the start was. And people forget this show was in development a lot longer than some of the others were. So it was developed initially alongside the likes of WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki. And it has the same issue that I have with those shows, no matter how much I like or dislike them. And it it feels like it's a movie that's just been cut up. It's a longer film that's been cut up. So whereas something like I thought Moon Knight did a better job at this. I thought Miss Marvel, and even though I didn't love the show, I did think She-Hulk did a much better job at this, where they felt like shows. They felt like actual shows where you could watch an episode and feel either satisfied or dissatisfied by what happened in the episode. There was enough there to continue on to the next week. So it is a continuous story, and overall you could say whether you enjoyed or disliked the show. Whereas these two episodes feel like the first act of a movie where it's all just set up. It's a really expansive cast, and so I feel like because of that, there's elements of this that just aren't a part of it. Like casting Dermot Mulroney as the president when we already know that in the near future, Harrison Ford's Thunderbolt Ross will be the president in the MCU. I think Dermot Mulroney, especially casting someone like him as, he's a recognized face. He's on the upswing as of recent. He's picking up roles. He was just in Scream. He's picking up roles in other films. Like he's getting an upswing recently. So casting him, I feel like that character is going to have more to do. And I feel like his connection to Rhodey specifically will fuel why Rhodey acts the way that he does. Because clearly Rhodey's taken a promotion if he's the president's right-hand man. But we haven't got there yet because it's a stretched out movie that you're watching week to week. And so I feel like this is one of those things where, because I'm not a huge fan of Loki personally, but WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, I thought both played better once they were over and I could watch them as a movie almost. I thought they played a bit better because there was that sort of element of none of this feels complete episode to episode. Everything feels like it's leading into something else, especially Falcon and Winter Soldier. That said, I like most of the performances so far. As I said, some of the characters just feel so unused right now that there's not a lot going on. Like I said, Dermot Mulroney as the president is probably going to have more to do as the show goes on. Outside of the show, they've already said that casting Christopher McDonald, Shooter McGavin, fucking is in the MCU now as the newscaster. He signed on to a multi-film deal. Like that reporting character will be in other projects going forward. So I'm sure there's more to come of that, and the fact that he is a Skrull too. I agree with everything you guys have said about the thing. I was gonna say I agree with everything you guys have said about the good acting. I think Sam Jackson's been good so far. Again, it's a case of the characters being written in a very weirdly adjusted way that doesn't like. I feel like they have to fill in the gaps a little bit of how we reached this point, like what happened that we got here. But I think he's been good. I like Mendelsohn so far. Unless they pull a twist, Kobe Smulders is done already. I liked her performance in that episode, but unless there's a twist to be pulled there.
So that might think, especially the casting news involving Kobe Smolder as well in the Marvel project. I'm thinking, so which led me to think about the ending of Far From Home, which I'm like, okay, I feel like the one that we knew, like especially the one that Fury knows, is dead. The one that, which means the one that probably is going to be her is the Skrull.
Well, she's also dead.
Wait, Skrull? Kobe
because the Skrull in Far From Home was Talos' wife.
Yeah. Also, is it weird to anyone else that two of the moms in Captain Marvel are now dead, like off screen?
They got off screen.
I have a question for you guys. What do we think, and what do we interpret the ending of the second episode? I'm guessing Nick Fury doesn't know his wife is a Skrull, right?
I thought she was the Skrull that brought Gravik to him. Was that not the same actress? That's what I got from it.
That's where I think it's probably some a graphic set.
Maybe.
Are you guys saying all Skrulls look alike? Is that what you guys are going with?
No,
right
I don't know.
No.
I'd have to go. I'd have to go back and look. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't paying close enough attention to the Skrull makeup.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
honestly, like he probably does know. Like I feel like he's like, oh yeah, I met her at like a Skrull.
That's why he fights so hard for them. I think like he's like
well that's part of it. Yeah, like he wants them to have a home.
Also, like, wouldn't all credibility for Nick Fury go out the window if he didn't know his wife was a Skrull for this long?
Yeah, like the biggest spy in the world, and he doesn't know his own wife is an alien.
Which is ironic, but sometimes not gonna happen when you're so close. Like, your professionalism goes out the window. But I just found it like it was a very confusing ending. It's like it kind of shows a twist, but you kind of don't understand what the twist is unless they're gonna reveal it in episode 3 or further.
I think part of my reaction was, "Holy crap, Nick Fury's married!"
Yeah, I was like, "Oh shit, he's married. Cool."
I think it was more of a twist that he got married than she was a Skrull. I think.
I mean, coming from the guy who let Hawkeye have a family on the side, it's not that shocking, but it is interesting to throw in there.
But it's one of those things where it's like he's never mentioned having like any semblance of a family in any of the. What is it now? Like 20 movies he's been in for Marvel,
which theoretically does mean he's a good spy.
Yeah, he's a great spy.
Yeah,
he's
like
good at his job.
I think that's the thing. Like, and going back to what a few of you guys have said earlier, I think this is the first time we've seen most of these characters like for real since Endgame. I want to say like we haven't seen like Rhodey. We kind of saw in Endgame as he was taking more of a leadership position, but that's because half the population is dead and he's a high-ranking general and he was an Avenger. Yeah, of course he's going to have a high-ranking position. Sam Jackson was gone for 5 years. All these other characters, some of them are gone for 5 years. So I feel like a lot of it is they're trying to show like in a way that these guys are all coming back different from the blip.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're still in that like post-Endgame, everyone's kind of, recovering in a way, but it's not really. You're right. They haven't really explained the character differences that much. They're just like, oh, it's post Endgame. He's different. Like Nick Fury's whole story right now is he's not the same spy as he was. He died and then he got like depressed.
I'll say it straight up. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of the first episode, and a lot of it to me was the dialogue. Like I think in the second episode, in some of the unsurety and the way that he sort of handles himself, I think, and the fact that he like is overly emotional, especially when speaking with Talos, I think that does a better job at showing the whole like you're not the same Nick you were thing. But like in the first episode, it's like you hear Talos say it, you hear Kobe say it, you hear
people say it to him instead of it showing.
Yeah,
Gravik says it like, oh, he's a wisp of a man or whatever. It's like you keep hearing, oh, he's not the same Nick that he was before. But there's nothing in that episode that shows it. Whereas in the second episode, I think they do a better job in just showing you instead of just having everyone say it over and over and over again.
Yeah,
I was actually thinking my girl. I was like, I never even thought about like, we're meant to see that like he's always like one step ahead. He's always like. Even in Winter Soldier, like he knew that was Hydra even before anybody else knew. Like that, like he's always one step ahead. So I think like in Endgame he loses. Like that was him losing. But yeah, he came back. So now he has to deal with the fact like knowing like I was bested. Like even though it's something like it comes to. I think it comes with his ego. He's got like a certain kind of ego, obviously, and someone who's got like that level of ego. That having to live with the fact that you lost and you don't know like and now like you're kind of questioning every move you make, and as a super spy that really you can't do that as we saw in the show. So
and I was gonna say
they introduced it, but I don't know if like I think it could have been like shown in a better way. I don't think it was shown in the best of ways, but there is a deeper thing they're trying to portray, and I think that Sam Jackson is trying to pull out of the performance.
It's something that I've actually I said very recently. We're not gonna go into it, and I won't say too much about what I mean about this. But watching the latest Indiana Jones film, one of my like criticisms of it is on paper, I think everything they came up with was a really good idea and an interesting concept. The execution just wasn't always there for every idea. And I would say that this sort of suffers from the same thing. I think on paper, they have a lot of really interesting ideas about where they want to take these characters in the aftermath of analyzing the ground level of all of this. And I do think their excuse for not bringing in the Avengers makes sense. Like, let's really understand what this threat is before we go fucking calling people in that could be then assumed an identity and all that. But yeah, the execution's not totally there. In terms of the Rhodey thing, and this is an idea, but I don't know if it'll be where they go with it. One of my friends who's a big Marvel fan watches the show, and for him, where his mind went was in Endgame, there was sort of this discussion amongst characters of there became this division between who stepped up and who didn't, right? When the going got tough, who stepped up and took a leadership role and who kind of bowed out and walked away and didn't really help, right? And I think that maybe there's a sense of that still remaining amongst people in this show. Rhodey, Nick Fury's talking to Rhodey about, the conversation being about black men of power and how do you get here, if we don't help each other. And what my friend took it as is he was like, to him, it felt like Rhodey was saying, well, the going got tough and you walked away and walked off the planet and went to do your own little thing up in space, whereas I've been the one staying here and actually taking care of things. So you don't get to just come back in now, fuck it all up in terms of like the relationship with Russia and being thrown under the bus in that sense, and still call the shots and say what's going to happen. Like at a certain point, you're no longer the guy in charge when you walk away for that long.
Yeah.
Now again, they can expand on that and go somewhere else with it, or he could be correct in his assumption, but it wasn't expounded upon enough, and it does feel like a departure from his character.
I think I partially agree with what your friend is saying. I think the other thing is though they kind of gloss over it a little bit, but they do say, "Oh, he's up in space running or starting sword, running sword or starting sword, one of those two." Saber. Sorry, yeah, Saber. So we know he's doing something. We just know that it's not what we're used to him doing.
I think the other I don't know if he left for a reason.
The people who know he left are like aware of why he left. Like, obviously Spider-Man didn't know because who cares why Spider-Man doesn't know? But like Rhodey would know why he's up there, and he knows what they're planning and what the whole goal of Saber is going to be. Hill would know, like Talos would know. All these other people who are like close to Fury would know. Okay, yeah, he's up there. He's supposed to be doing this work, and all that stuff. So I don't know if I necessarily see it as like, oh, you left when the going got tough. Like, nah, he was dead for 5 years, and then suddenly when he comes back, you guys put him on a space shuttle, starting this new spy, whatever the hell Saber's going to be.
I took it as he made the choice to go.
Like he's running. Like he's avoiding something, and
he is avoiding something. Yeah, sure. That's a better thing. Like, yeah, he's avoiding it, but also like he's.
But yeah, no, he
starting
didn't just
like
disappear.
a whole.
You're right.
Yeah, he didn't just disappear. Like he's going. Like if they're all like, oh yeah, he's running Saber now. Like they all are assuming that Saber's going to be like a beneficial thing.
He was in a vacation simulator when we saw him being Spider-Man.
Listen, honestly. With the amount I'm working right now, I don't blame him.
He was having a bad case of chicken legs when we saw him in Far From Home.
I'm just
man did not have his lotion.
Information we were given. We don't know what he's doing behind the scenes, but what we've seen, we don't. He's vacationing.
None of us really know what is going on, but it's just like, all right, we see him up there.
Go ahead, Frenchie. I see you. We're all throwing points out there.
I think Mehdi just kind of like made me realize why I'm not into the show right now. I don't understand and believe the motivations of Malik and Rhodes, like the anger towards him. Yeah, he promised and everything, but he went to do something. It's not like he just disappeared and no one knows the hell he's doing, right? The way Rhodes is acting or Malik is acting is like they got betrayed by him, and yet he wasn't betraying anyone, and he was blipped before, and like it kind of shows like the stupidity of humans in a sense that like just don't see further than their own nose and just think about their emotions. But it doesn't seem like a validating reason enough to start a whole war. It's just like, you left. Okay, well, like, did you not find other solutions, other contacts to do this? Were you solely relying on Nick Fury, and you're that incompetent that you start doing a war instead? It doesn't feel like the motivations is there.
I agree with you with Rhodey in that sense. I'll agree with you there. With Gravik, I think we're going to get more flashbacks. I think we're going to see the development of how did it go from like, because and I think that's where Talos will come in as well, because something that I noticed is like, it's not just that Nick Fury committed himself to trying to help the Skrulls and clearly it didn't work out. It's that Talos set him up almost as a god. He was like, if any man is going to do it, it's this man right here. And you have this idealistic young kid who's lost everything looking to this man. And so when he doesn't come through, it's the like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to do it myself. And there's embitterment with it. I feel like for certain that is something they'll have to advance on. Otherwise, they failed as a show, which I don't think they're going to in that sense.
But, can I also say, like, if I'm going to go into the, like, humans are not very good at, like, going into space overall. Like, we landed on the moon in the 60s, and since then, like, we've had trouble having a rover on Mars, which is, like, the next closest planet. So I don't understand what like, I get in the Avengers universe, we've gone to other planets kind of, and Captain Marvel can fly through space and all these things. But is he expecting Nick Fury to, like, single-handedly scan every single planet that's out there and, like, somehow push humanity into an actual space age?
It seems like.
Yeah,
like, has he noticed how, like, slowly we can't even figure out how to make a submarine? Apparently, like, we're not gonna go into space and be able to find a planet for them to live on. We also don't even know how many of them they are. Like, there's so much expectation put on Fury to, like, push humanity into space and do all this stuff and find these guys a planet. We can't even figure out our own planet, let alone find another one. And, like, humans have been looking for planets in, like, that possibly could hold life, and we can't find it with the way we are today. In the Avengers universe, yeah, sure, they could find it. They can use, like, some other resources that Captain Marvel has and things like that, but they still don't know what they're doing out there.
So,
like, what is he actually expecting them to do?
I have no idea. So because
think about,
we're
like,
over
the
sorry, I was going to say real quick, because we're over the 2-hour mark, I am going to start to push us towards a wrap up here. But we are to say for those watching at home, we are going to come back to the show and do another discussion on it once it's over. I'm going to wait for the remaining 4 episodes to release, and then we're going to come back to it again. If these guys are interested, I want to try and have the same panel back on the week that it happens. I'd love to discuss it with you guys again once it comes out, but obviously schedules and all that, we'll see how that works out when the time comes. But as I go around one more time, and Alec, I'll start with you so you can continue your point. The other thing, talking point I'll give you is there something in this that you're hoping they expand on, or what is, like, the main thing you're looking forward to with the rest of it? And then very quickly, because it's a topic I'm going to cut, what were your thoughts on the controversy over the AI opening of the show?
With the AI opening, I don't have much, like, I don't know much about it, so I understand that, like, there's this, like, debate of, like, artists being afraid that AI is going to take over. I do think that AI art is, like, not anywhere near on the level of, like, regular art. Like, there's a point, like, even, like, I'm starting to get to a point where, like, on TikTok filters where I'm like, these are starting not to look good. They're starting to look kind of like rehashed over and over again. Like, their AI is eventually going to, like, die out, or at least have to have a major upgrade in order to compete with, like, actual art. But I understand the argument, and I'll stand with the artists. I would much prefer, if you're gonna get an AI, just tell an artist what you want and pay him the money to do the job that you want, because it's the better thing to do. But in terms of, like, the show, I was gonna say, like, what I was trying to say was like Earth, what Mehdi was saying is, like, with Earth has already had to, like, bring in another alien community, which is New Asgard, and they just basically gave them, like, a certain space of land, but it seems like the Skrulls want a little bit more.
I forgot about that.
I think it's like they gave them Norway, I think is where they are. They just gave them Norway and said have it.
But it seems like Nick Fury was promising a planet or something, because he's not able to get the same deal. The show, I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going. I'm not like I need to tune in every week, but I am gonna definitely like see where the story goes. And in terms of like what I want to see, I just want to see more. I like the little moments that we're getting from Nick Fury. Like I laughed at some of his little jokes that he had that like showed a little bit more of his personality. Like when Talos asked him if he what he got for his midlife crisis, and he's like the Avengers. I was like, I don't know why, that just like it makes sense and it's funny. I can see that like someone as powerful as him for his midlife crisis, he's like, I want a superpowered team. So that was funny. I'm enjoying those little moments, which is what I've liked from all these shows, is the little character moments. Like the big stories are cool, yeah, but I like these little moments that we get with characters that we don't normally get in movies.
Yeah, Frenchie, down to you. Final thoughts.
I completely disagree with the AI art, by the way, because I do a lot of AI art for a lot of stuff, and you just have to know how to use it. I just don't think they actually use it properly, but AI art is getting more and more insane. Certain art I've been, man, it just blows my mind. But when it comes to the show itself, I just, the only thing I really ask for is for it to be satisfying at the end, because almost every show has always dropped the ball, in my opinion, in the last episode, and it just doesn't feel satisfying. So I just want this to be a beautiful, full, complete meal at the end of the season, and not be like, oh, all this for that? Well, okay, I'm not getting like 2 months of my life back, you know. So I just want it to be satisfying.
Fair enough. Mehdi.
First of all, Frenchie, I'm sorry, but I hate AI art. I think it's the stupidest fucking thing. I would much rather have AI do something like do my taxes or like help with surgeries and like help with medical stuff. Stuff like where it's gonna like help benefit humanity instead of just being like, let me put a filter on your face and make you look like a fucking dumbass. No.
Hey,
I'm not gonna go into a whole rant about this. I'm sorry.
Don't wrap
but,
AI into TikTok. That's a totally different beast.
Oh yeah, actual AI art like the. Anyways, we'll talk about that off screen.
Listen. Even the like the fact that $1 billion company put an AI art like thing on their opening credits and it looks so stupid. Like She-Hulk, for all the problems that it had, their like artwork they did in the actual credits, I loved it. It looked the hand-drawn stuff. It was brilliant. I thought it was really creative. I thought it was great. The AI stuff at the beginning of this looks ugly as hell, and I get what they're trying to go for, but it's terrible. And AI, I don't think should be doing art. But that's a whole other conversation. But I agree with what Alec was saying. Is the little moments of the show are getting to me. I think my favorite moment of the show so far is a character moment, and like Alec brought up his one, I'm going to bring up mine. It's Ben Mendelsohn fighting the other Skrull in like the back of the museum, and then Fury shoots him, and you just see this like lament in Ben Mendelsohn's eyes, like, I told you not to do that. And like you get why he's saying it, because it's like there's so few Skrulls left and he doesn't want any of them to die, even though they're doing this whole like kind of Cold War thing with them. He's still like, he's on the other side, but you're still not going to kill him because he's still a part of someone I'm trying to take care of. And I think that moment for me was like Ben Mendelsohn. Like Ben Mendelsohn is obviously a fantastic actor, but I was immediately like, this guy's gonna fucking steal the show for me. Like just that moment was so good and so well done by him. And to me, I think he's gonna be the guy who steals this show throughout. Him and Olivia Colman, I think, are just gonna be the ones who are doing it. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
And Kevin.
I'm all right. I was more of an Emily Clark. I'm curious more about what first side leaning on. I'm really interested in that. About the AR thing, I'm like, is it anything AI I hate? I feel like I don't want to trust anything on the AI because I'm like thinking it's no longer be lack the humanity style of it, and I feel like I do not trust AI with anything because like if something goes wrong, like how can you easily fix it? It's gonna take time with AI. Like is stupid. But the AR thing, I was like really weirded out about it. But then when I watched Dan Murrow and he did the research about it and finding out that it was more of a tool, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. If you're using it as a tool, I'm like, oh, that at least fine by me. Because I'm thinking, if you're using it with the artist as well, it can work. I think it being like that, I'm like, okay, makes sense. So I have no problem with it, at least.
Yeah, in terms of the AI thing, I think you nail it there. And obviously, I had this in the video I had prepped for it. But like, I respect the people who are trying to fight the good fight and they want to protect artists' jobs, and they want to ensure, is similar with the writer's strike, that AI is not just here to replace a human being's job. This is not the thing to attack, because if you actually read into it and you understand how they used it, Marvel hired a VFX studio, the same studio that's worked with them before, I believe, even on like credit sequences of their shows. And it was the director's idea for the artists to use AI in their visual creation of the intro to the show, because he thought it played with the same theme of like you're kind of blending what's reality between who's a human, who's a scroll, with the idea of having a real artist make art with AI and blending the reality of what's artificial and what's real. Now, that said, I do think the images are ugly. Like, visually, you could have come up with something that looked a bit better, but conceptually, I don't have an issue with it at all, because they did it the right way. They ensured that nobody was losing a contract over using it. It was, let's have the actual creatives come up with something and use AI to do it because it fits the theme. Yeah, like, somebody someday is going to use AI to just straight up replace a human artist, and they're just going to have an algorithm develop something and they're going to use it. And that's when I think you go to war against the concept, not with this. That's it on the show. And as always, as I said, Matt and I, as the regular co-host, give our scores. Matt, I don't believe, has seen both episodes, so he doesn't have a score for it yet. But I overall, I gave the 2 episodes a 6 out of 10. That score is subject to change, obviously, as more episodes come out. I thought the first episode was just okay. I thought the second episode was a step up for sure. I just think I think the show killed Maria Hill a little too quickly. It felt like they wanted to throw something at the end of that first episode to like set the tone. I don't necessarily agree with the argument that she was fridged, because I think they're going to do something more with it than just developing Nick Fury as a character. I mean, we've already seen, like, we got to meet Maria Hill's mother and see how she reacted to her daughter's death at the hands of something she can't even know about for, legal reasons. And I think, unfortunately, in this instance, she's the character in this who's the most expendable that people are connected to, because she's been around longer. So she was just the natural choice if you're going to kill someone. But I think it was too early. I like the performances. I think the writing could be a bit stronger. I think the dialogue is stronger than the story so far. And I had said plenty of times before that having not seen Game of Thrones, all I've heard is that Emilia Clarke can be a great actress, but anything I've seen her in, I've not been a fan of hers yet. This would probably be her best performance so far, but the character doesn't have very much to go on so far. So I hope that they give her more to do, because I want to believe Game of Thrones fans. I want to believe she's a good actress. But Last Christmas, Terminator Genesis, Me Before You, like, none of these are doing anything for me. They're not selling me on her as an actress. So I hope the show gives her more. That said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it here because we're at 2:15. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. Guys, thank you so much for watching. First off, thank you for being a part of the show. I appreciate having you guys here. Kevin, Madi, Alec, I appreciate you guys coming on again. Of course, we'll have you guys back in the future. Frenchie, I know in particular you have a channel that you run, if you want to plug that really quickly, since it's newer to some of our members here.
I mean, I do a lot of stuff, a lot of places, but go check out Multiverse of Geekdom, Northern Entertainment Group, and a bunch of other stuff I'm doing. But yeah, the list is too long. I'm not gonna take it to 3 hours, my friend.
All right, guys. So once again, thank you to Kevin for being here for the first part, co-hosting the show with me. I appreciate it. We will be back, as always, next week discussing, in addition to the latest news in the movie sphere, we will be discussing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the most recent big release, in full spoilers. There's Frenchie's opinion right there. We'll go ahead. We'll be discussing that in full spoilers next week. So until then, tune back in next week. Be sure to check out and support Movie Battleground. I know I had said on the Facebook pages that I would have a week's worth of matches going up this week. Unfortunately, I spent a lot of my week at my school campus, and there was an internet issue, so I was working off of my own personal hotspot, which meant I wasn't downloading nearly as much as I could. So that all got delayed, but a full proper schedule will be coming, including what matches will be coming soon, so you guys will have a better idea of that instead of what we did for the month of June, where it was kind of just a daily surprise. But thank you guys for watching. Tune in next week, and until then, take care, everybody. Thank you.